Hey there, and welcome to The Story. I'm Ashley Korslund in for Pat Doris tonight. Okay, we are 1 month and 1 day removed from election night, and yesterday was the final day for Washington's Secretary of State to certify the election results per state law. But even though the vote is certified, if there were any problems with any ballots that could possibly involve criminal activity, well, those processes are far from over. And that's tonight's big story. So we will preface this story with the plain and simple fact that voter fraud is rare, and there's been no evidence of widespread voter fraud. However, there are isolated incidents, and if elections officials are suspicious of a crime, they'll often refer those cases to police or prosecutors for further investigation. Our sister station in Seattle recently looked into cases involving people breaking election laws, and they found the suspects often face unequal justice depending on where the alleged crime took place. Here's Chris Ingalls with the story.
At Jefferson County's historic courthouse, prosecutors filed an unusual criminal case in 2019.
It's very uncommon.
It was based on this security camera video that shows a woman entering the mailroom at a mobile home park outside Sequim.
We felt it was pretty serious.
She rifles through the community mailboxes. One of the things she's targeting are the ballots that have just been delivered for an upcoming election.
I paint everyone's animals on rocks.
Artist Sharon Murphy is one of the residents who will soon learn that the thief
It was all on tape.
is the neighbor who lives right across the way. Responding law officers found bags of mail in the back of her car.
I was shocked because we were like, oh, she stole the mail. And then we're like, oh my God, our ballots were in there. But I was really surprised how violated I felt by that.
Prosecutors charged the neighbor, including several counts of hindering or bribing a voter, a first for Jefferson County's elected prosecutor.
I think is the only case of this nature that I have so far seen.
That kind of case is rare, according to this state database we received through a public records request. It shows only 42 voter fraud criminal cases filed statewide in Washington in the last 15 years. More than a third are dismissed without a conviction.
At the time, we weren't exactly sure what was going on with this individual.
The case at the trailer park is one of them that resulted in treatment instead of punishment.
It became pretty clear that this individual was in the midst of a mental health crisis.
This is the place with the most election-related prosecutions in Washington, Lewis County. Jonathan Meyer has been the elected prosecutor here for more than 10 years.
In Lewis County, if we see a law violation, we'll charge it. I think that is a reputation that we have.
Meyer's office has charged 8 voter fraud cases, 1 out of every 5 in Washington state courts.
Hi, Mr. Herron.
Yeah.
How are you?
Here in Randall, we're on the doorstep of the most recent vote fraud convict in Lewis County. When Carolyn Herron's ballot signature didn't match at the elections office, workers discovered she died before ballots were mailed out.
And you had actually signed your wife's ballot, correct? Yeah. Why did you do that?
Well, she had just passed away, and I felt that her vote needed to be put in.
Dennis Herron's wife died of cancer before the 2020 presidential election. Right here on the kitchen table, she'd left a voter pamphlet with her chosen candidates, which her 79-year-old husband used to fill out her ballot.
I come back from burying her, and the ballot was in the mailbox.
I think the prosecutor here would say, you made the decision to break the law, and this is on you.
Yeah, well, I guess I didn't realize that it was a felony.
He's an old man. Is it really worth going after him?
It drives the point home to the community that we're not going to tolerate that type of activity within our county.
In the state's largest county, King, a different approach.
It's really, to me, overkill to put these in front of a judge, to use criminal justice resources, unless you see something that's an organized effort to sway the election.
Longtime elected prosecutor Dan Satterberg says vote fraud usually involves one-time violators like Dennis Herron.
All for what? So that we can make this widower feel even worse?
His office sends warning letters to the family of deceased voters instead of prosecution.
You know, some people would say, I think you're letting them get away with it.
In my office, I've got 235 murder cases to get to a jury. Do I want to charge somebody for voting for their dead spouse and put that right alongside those other cases and try to get it into court?
We We visited some of the 22 King County homes that received warning letters for ballot return for deceased voter in the 2020 presidential election. At least one widow disputes the suggestion that she voted for her deceased husband.
You're saying that he did sign that ballot?
He scribbled on it. It didn't have his exact signature.
Cindy Kalsa says her husband, Sadah, died from COVID right after he voted. But we pointed out it was more than a ballot signature mismatch that made authorities suspicious.
Let me just read you a line off of this. It says, records show the voter was deceased prior to the date the ballot was issued by the county. Is that true?
So they're claiming the ballots weren't even out?
You had the ballot before he died.
I don't know. I know that I had him sign something.
We double-checked with King County Elections, which confirms ballots were mailed out October 14th, 2020, 2 weeks after her husband died. When confronted, Kalsa asked for a second interview to make an admission.
2 weeks after he passed away, I got the ballot. I wasn't thinking right or wrong. I wanted to honor him, and I signed the ballot and I sent it in. What I had done was wrong.
Why didn't you tell us the truth in the beginning?
Emotionally, I wasn't in the right place. I'm truthfully sorry that I sent it in.
In another county, her case may have been handled differently, like Dennis Herron's.
Do you regret doing that?
Now I do, yes.
We found the cases in Washington court records are mostly one-time crimes of opportunity. And although prosecutors handle them differently, they all agree on one thing.
You feel the elections here in Lewis County are secure?
Yes.
We just don't see these cases very frequently.
The big story is there is zero evidence of any widespread voter fraud.
All right, let's head south to Lake Oswego, where the city is planning to build a new water treatment facility. And city leaders know where they want to put it. The only problem is that longtime local businesses currently sit right where they want the treatment plant to go. And that brings us to this phrase, eminent domain. So that refers to the power of the government to take private property and convert it to public use. And because of the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, the government can only take the land if they provide, quote, just compensation to the property owners. In this case in Lake Oswego, the local businesses on the land the city wants to take would be forced to move. And for some, that's not a realistic option. Chris McGinnis has the story.
I need a job. I need my job, what I do for, my living.
That's what's at stake for Bill Erickson, who's anchored his auto repair business on Foothills Road in Lake Oswego for 33 years. He and neighbor Lanny Instaness, owner of Lanny's Marine, bought this property outright in 2018 in hopes of securing a future, and with both men in their 60s, a retirement. This property is vital to your business.
Absolutely. I couldn't run with anything less than an acre or so of property, of usable flat land.
The problem? The city of Lake Oswego also needs the land.
One way or another, we have to do something.
Built in 1964, the Tryon Creek wastewater facility, which is shared with the city of Portland, is at the end of its usable life. Lake Oswego Mayor Joe Buck weighs in.
These are situations we never wish that we found ourselves in, but sometimes in a city, when you're talking about critical infrastructure, it's just a fact that we have to face.
Lake Oswego wants to build a new state-of-the-art wastewater facility, and it wants to develop the old site into prime riverfront property, which could be anything, maybe a park or retail or homes. While final decisions on the new site will be made at a December 20th city council meeting, it's likely the city of Lake Oswego will make a declaration of public necessity, granting itself eminent domain, which means the government has the power to acquire the land for public use with just compensation. The end result? Bill, Lanny, and the local businesses will be forced to move.
From the perspective of, is this the best idea to build a new sewage treatment plant versus repairing the old one? This makes sense.
Bill understands the need, but questions the burden on local businesses, which may go out of business.
The city hires a company to help with relocation, but there is nowhere to relocate to.
And you've been told this?
Yeah, that the city has no land for us to move to. And so we need to, I guess, search outside of Lake Oswego, which is really difficult when our customers are all here in Lake Oswego.
Our goals are keeping the rates very stable into the decades to come for the ratepayers, ensuring a very environmentally sustainable project, and also being able to take care of the businesses that are down here in this current environment.
It feels unfair.
The prospect of relocating his shop miles away is daunting.
Not to start in a new town, you're starting from square one.
Chris McGinnis, KGW News.
We would love to hear your thoughts on this story. What do you think about eminent domain? Is it a necessary evil of sorts, or do you think it's completely ridiculous? Send an email to thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. If you missed yesterday's show, our big story was about a 16-year-old girl in Vancouver who overdosed on fentanyl in her high school bathroom. And despite staff trying to use Narcan to save her, the girl died a couple days later in the hospital. Fentanyl and opioid overdoses just plague the United States right now and have for several years. In fact, we hit a deadly new record in 2021. The CDC reported more than 107,000 drug deaths, which breaks down to about 300 drug deaths every single day. There has not been a national system to track overdoses until now. This week, the Biden administration unveiled this new website that'll track non-fatal overdoses. The idea is to help shape the medical response when overdose clusters happen in different parts of the country, including quickly distributing Narcan to try and prevent overdose deaths. The site will be updated every 2 weeks with reports collected at the county level by EMS first responders in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. The data is managed by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which collects EMS data. So it'll focus entirely on opioids, the leading cause of drug deaths. It will not include drugs like cocaine, meth, or other substances. The site also does not include information from hospitals, schools, or businesses, just EMS data. Now, officials have acknowledged that tracking non-fatal overdoses this way does provide really a limited snapshot, but they're hailing this as at least the start to a big step in the right direction. So in case you're wondering what the data shows so far from November of last year to November of this year, well, Oregon here is in that darker shade, which indicates that non-deadly overdoses are higher than average in our state. Meanwhile, Washington is a step below in the near average category. In fact, you can see on the left side of your screen here, Oregon ranks 10th worst in the nation for non-fatal overdoses, with the worst being Washington, D.C., Connecticut, and Illinois. In our investigative series called Uncommitted, we explored how state standards for civil commitment are so strict, many people just can't get the help they need. Civil commitment is the process of getting people mental health treatment against their will. And if somebody with serious mental illness turns down treatment, they're often released to care for themselves. And that creates a cycle with sometimes frustrating and dangerous gaps. Well, now, Oregon state leaders, from doctors to judges to lawmakers, they're reviewing the entire state statute on forced mental health care. They want to fix a system that many people say just isn't working, as families are desperate for solutions for their loved ones, even though in some cases it's too late.
If I'd had a place to take her to get sober and be on her meds again, I do believe she would be alive right now.
Monday here on The Story, we'll bring you details from the group that's trying to change state standards on civil commitment to get people access to mental health care when they need it. Again, tune in Monday at 6 to learn more.
We've been through a lot in 2022, and there are some big changes in the new year for Oregon and Washington. When it comes to problems like homelessness, will we see meaningful change in the next year?
It's easier to solve homelessness in the suburbs. Beaverton and Hillsborough look real nice too.
We're hearing from leaders from Oregon and Washington's news media on what they foresee in 2023.
We're coming to the end of a big year in news. Of course, we had the election, a new governor for Oregon, some big upsets in Congress, and Portland chose a new form of government. So we wanted to take a look back at 2022. We gathered editors from major news outlets in our area, the Oregonian, OPB, Willamette Week, and the Columbian, and we invited them all to Straight Talk. On the topic of homelessness, Aaron, let's talk about Mayor Ted Wheeler's big plan he's unveiled in the last few weeks that includes banning camping and organizing 6 sanctioned campsites. That will be very large. How do you think this is going to go?
Well, you have to be a little bit impressed with the determination of his chief aide, Sam Adams, whose plan this really is. We revealed back in, I think, February that this was Sam's plan for these large-scale camps. It's difficult to imagine how, on a practical level, any of them would work, and I'd be willing to put down $5 that none of them ever open.
At all?
Yeah.
Okay. I know you'll be on that one, watching that very closely.
Well, now I owe everybody $5, so yeah.
That's true. I'll be calling you for the money. We also wanted to compare how Portland is doing with Vancouver. So in the last few years, Vancouver has really seen a revitalization, a big one, of downtown and the waterfront, while Portland has struggled.
I think we're feasting a little bit on Portland's malaise that way. So we probably had a little bit of luck with the timing in that we were able to redevelop a waterfront that has been a 10-year effort, but turned out to be redeveloped and opening just at the right time. So there's been tremendous investment over there. We're becoming a lot more sophisticated. It used to be you'd come across the bridge and the thing you'd see is that old dilapidated red lion, and you look now and gee, there's a skyline down there. There's all kinds of restaurants and shops and 2 fancy hotels. It's becoming a different place. Even the city center has changed a lot. They used to talk about downtown revitalization, but I think it's vitalization. I think there's more to downtown Vancouver than there's ever been in the city's history.
And what are you hearing from your readers or people you know that your reporters have interviewed when it comes to the perception of Portland, whether this is true or not, about how safe people feel to go into Portland?
Well, I think some people are still feeling nervous about coming into Portland, especially the downtown area. But I also think that they are finding more options closer to home, and the sales tax isn't as big a barrier as it was. There was a report just in the last week about sales tax leakage in Clark County that showed that had decreased quite a bit. So it shows that people are buying more items in Clark County and less in Portland.
Vancouver has also implemented solutions to homelessness much faster than Portland has, it seems. Several safe stay villages of tiny homes for people to live in have opened, and more are planned, along with building new affordable housing. Portland has now opened several of its safe rest villages, but the plan has been a lot slower to get off the ground. As Aaron Mesh from Willamette Week pointed out, though, Portland and Vancouver are really comparing apples to oranges.
Let's not overdo the success story here. I mean, it's
still homelessness.
It's easier to solve homelessness in the suburbs. Beaverton and Hillsborough look real nice too. So you have an urban center with a number of people who cannot find affordable housing, and rents continue to rise. Evictions are up. There's reason to think that. I'm just saying, let's not celebrate Vancouver's success.
Vancouver's doing it perfectly.
Sure.
That's a fair point.
We aren't having as many troubles, but on the other hand, so our office is right downtown, so I often have somebody sleeping outside my window during the day.
Anybody have any thoughts, Lily?
Well, yeah, and I mean, not to downplay the really significant problems we're having in our downtown and also with, rising crime rates and homelessness, but these are also problems across the country right now. I mean, every major city in the U.S. is dealing with these issues, low occupancy in their downtowns because of all the major shifts that have happened because of a global pandemic. So not to say we don't have real problems in Portland that need to be worked on, but we're not the only ones trying to face these issues.
And you can watch our entire conversation tonight on Straight Talk right here on KGW at 7 o'clock or on our KGW YouTube channel. Well, still ahead on the story, shaken by tragedy but strengthened by love. How a holiday tradition is bringing hope back to Lyons, Oregon after some lost their homes in a wildfire. That's when the story returns. The holidays are a time to revisit favorite traditions and share them with friends. In Lyons, Oregon, one woman is taking her love of decorating gingerbread houses to another level. As Catherine Cook reports, it's less about the houses, though, and more about being together under one roof.
There's much debate over what makes a house a home. On this night, sprinkles, Skittles, and
I've had a little cocktail.
A few other things are giving life.
We're having a good time here.
To these sparkling creations, and also the gingerbread houses.
So, Miss Kelly, what's your theme this year?
Jackie Kirkpatrick.
I've been doing this for 26.
Is the frosting.
Trust me, it will stick.
That holds it all together. She started this tradition in 1996. It was a small group then, just her mom and a couple neighbors.
And then every year it gets bigger and bigger.
This year, Jackie baked 60 gingerbread houses for 5 parties, and one reason.
And it's fun. I know that they're having a good time and relaxed. What is that?
These guests.
It's deer poop.
Are the ladies of Juniper Street in Lyons. And of course, Jackie's husband, Dean.
I might act like I don't want to be around, but I do, but don't tell her.
They moved here 5 years ago, their retirement dream home on the North Santiam River. The gingerbread parties came with them.
What starts it is just talking to your neighbors.
There's first-timer Aletha.
She invited me last year, and I was like, nah. I don't do this kind of stuff. I'm not creative.
Jane here is on her 4th year.
My theme was a log cabin, but my pretzels would not stick.
It's bigger than just building gingerbread houses. It's a community that looks out for one another.
Never was that more apparent than the summer of 2020. Wildfire ripped through the Santiam Canyon, forcing everyone to evacuate.
We were fast asleep and got the phone call about 2:30, 2:45 that said, leave now.
Lord help us all. I've never been so scared in my life.
Aletha Shine is a volunteer firefighter with State and Fire District. She stayed behind.
You know, she saved lives. Because these were people, older people that didn't know how close the fire was to their homes.
Almost got stuck. Chief was yelling at us to get out of there.
11 days later, this group returned to Juniper Street. Their homes, by some miracle, were still here. Others, just across the river, were not.
We have a lot of friends who did lose everything. Everything.
2 years later, homes that burned are new again, and neighborhoods that survived are stronger than ever. Maybe what makes a house a home
it's sticking.
Is the resolve
I'll do this again.
To always try.
I enjoyed it, believe it or not.
Smile.
In Lyons, Catherine Cook, KGW News.
Wow, what a beautiful story. Love that. All right, keep sending your questions and your comments to thestory@kgw.com. We'll finish the show right after this. Hey, the KGW Great Toy Drive is underway right now, and if you would like to help, just drop off a new unwrapped toy at any IQ Credit Union, Fred Meyer, or local Toyota dealership. And if you'd like to drop off a toy in person, we do have 2 events coming up this weekend. So on Saturday, Drew Carney and the KGW team will be out at Clackamas Promenade collecting toys from 10 to 2. Or this Sunday and Monday, you can bring a toy to Zoo Lights and drop it off with Intel at the Polar Plaza. Please give and help bring a little joy to local kids this holiday season. Every little bit really does help. Well, that brings us here to the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. Pat will be back right here on Monday. We'll see you then.